I would sing the songs of the working stiffs, of the short-changed Joes, the born poor, the afflicted. I would gamble with the long-shot players who light candles in the wind and resent with the pushed around because of race or birth. Above all, I would fight for their causes on the screens of the world. No, not as a bleeding heart with an Olympian call to free the masses. Masses is a horrid term, unacceptable, insulting, degrading. When I see a crowd, I see a collection of free individuals, each a unique person, each a king or queen, each a story that would fill a book, each an island of human dignity. What is America? What is the American dream? What is utopia? And who is the hero that can give all that to us? These are all questions which director Frank Capra tried to answer. Capra was born in 1897 in Sicily, and in 1903 his family moved to Los Angeles, under the impression that America was the land wherein people could succeed. Capra ended up studying engineering at Caltech. He performed extremely well, rose to the top of his class. He enlisted in World War I, returned unable to find a job, and it was by a bit of chance and ingenuity that Capra got into the film business. He answered an ad placed by a retired stage actor. From there, he continued finding small jobs, gag man, writer, etc. After a while, he got his hands on silent actor Harry Langdon and brought him to prominence. They then had a falling out, and Capra was unable to find a job until he turned to B-film producer Columbia Pictures. It was at Columbia that Capra became an auteur. He insisted on taking control of casting, executing, final cut. He said he was trading money for power he couldn't get in any other studio. He didn't want this kind of glamour Hollywood factory of MGM. He wanted freedom to do what he wanted. He wanted to create an artistic work. During this time, Capra produced It Happened One Night, which inaugurated the screwball comedy area. The film swept all top 5 Academy Awards: Best Picture for Columbia, Best Director for Frank Capra, Best Writer for Robert Riskin, and Best Actor and Actress for Clark Gable and Claudette Colbert. But Capra's ultimate goal was to go into independent production. Meet John Doe was his first indie film after World War II. Capra set up Liberty Films, and these films were distributed by RKO. In 1949, he sold Liberty to Paramount and made only 5 fiction films after that, none of which performed well. Capra in the 30s had a slightly more populist shift. During this time, he spoke most strongly to the people and created his best work, obtaining 3 Director Academy Awards. Capra wanted to remind people the value of the little man. You have Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, which talks about how corruption is not in the people, it's in the elitists. But while he's anti-elitist, he's also pro-individual. He believes that social change begins with a change in the individual. He doesn't affiliate himself with the Popular Front. He's actually a staunch Republican. He was skeptical of the New Deal. Whatever populism Capra did have fizzled out by the 1940s. I mean, it's practically parody in the opening montage of Meet John Doe, with this montage of people who present the film. In World War II, Capra wanted to promote patriotism. He said, "I feel like I was born in America, and spiritually I've been here since 1776. So he and Walt Disney and others create the Why We Fight films, which are basically propaganda meant to rally the people together, to kind of inspire them as people. After that, he makes It's a Wonderful Life, which he kind of finds his true viewpoint. He kind of answers that question, what is the American dream? What is utopia? And this shows Capra's role as the cultural myth maker. You have critics who say that Capra just makes a happy ending look too easy. It's just sap, it's Capricorn. However, this loses sight of the fact that Capra's films are fables. They're myths, archetypes that Capra uses to express emotional truth. Morris Dixon says that Capra's films are fairy tales, not in the superficial sense of having unlikely stories and happy endings, but because they develop narrative archetypes rooted deep in human consciousness. Capra's ideal was the sentimentalized past, small towns, folksy families, neighbors. You have the Bedford Falls and the Sycamore House. An audience responded to these films because they felt their worth as individuals. It's not the masses. It's not V for Vendetta. This anonymous type of thing. He wanted to pull out the richness of each individual being. You still have this legacy today. You have films like Up, which are also about that personal, moving story of everyday life.
You know what I'd do? Between now and, let's say, Christmas when he's going to jump, I'd run a daily on. Starting with his boyhood, his schooling, his first job. A wide-eyed youngster facing a chaotic world. The problem of the average man, of all the John Does in the world. Now, then comes the drama. He meets discouragement. He finds the world his feet of clay. His ideals crumble, so what does he do? He decides to commit suicide and protest against the state of civilization. He thinks of the river, but no, he has a better idea. The city hall. Why? Because he wants to attract attention. He wants to get a few things off his chest, and that's the only way he can get himself heard. Arguments will start. Should he commit suicide or should he not? People will write in pleading with him, but no, sir, John Doe will remain adamant. On Christmas Eve, hot or cold, he goes.
The Capra hero is kind of shown in this clip, the creation of the Capra hero. It's this typical American who is going to commit suicide on Christmas Eve. This is kind of the building up to It's a Wonderful Life. According to Morris Dixon again, Capra's heroes are not exceptional men, but only heightened versions of ordinary good men. Capra creates David and Goliath scenarios for these heroes. It's this world filled with these strong characters, and he crafts people like Clark Gable, Claudette Colbert, Barbara Stanwyck, Gary Cooper, and Jimmy Stewart into these archetypes who undergo a rite of passage. And the Capra hero understands that something is wrong with the world, and one man must stand up to it. Basically, Capra created Christ. The underlying idea of my movies, he says, is actually the Sermon on the Mount. And this image of the innocent Christ is kind of created by stars like Gary Cooper and Jimmy Stewart, and he picks them because they have this kind of Abraham Lincoln look about them, this innocent, noble look. And then John Doe, this basically follows the story of Christ. This hero descends from Utopia, the small town. He's made famous in a Sermon on the Mount, and then he's later booed by the very public that applauded him earlier. And then there's these lines like, they're crucifying him. You'll be buried in Potter's Field. And finally, Barbara Stanwyck's character tells him, you don't have to die to keep the John Doe ideal alive. Someone already died for that once, the first John Doe, and he's kept that ideal alive for nearly 2,000 years. It was he who kept it alive in them, and he will go on keeping it alive forever and always. So let's answer this question. What is the American dream? What is utopia? What is paradise? We find this in Capra's thesis film, It's a Wonderful Life. George Bailey wants to be successful. He wants to make something of himself. He wants to have adventure, but he keeps getting cut off, and so he just lives this normal life. He gets married, he has kids, but he lives a selfless life, a normal, safe, selfless life that enriches other people. And then he gets pushed and pushed. He can't take it anymore. He kind of dies and is baptized and reborn, and then he understands what life is all about. In 1944, Jean-Paul Sartre created a play called No Exit, and the thesis of that play is basically hell is other people. But for Frank Capra, heaven is other people. Adventure is in relationships, and that's what we remember. That's what we take away from life. George Bailey doesn't try to go out and change the world. He only tries to change his little part of it. It's not the anonymous John Doe. It's George Bailey, a real individual with a real individual's name trying to enrich a community made out of friends and family. And that, Frank Capra would say, is where a person finds his true wealth.
To my big brother George, the richest man in town.